Stay tuned for today's antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Tom. Happy Thursday.
Good morning. How are you today, Bob?
I'm doing well, except I didn't do the things I had to do that I normally do because I didn't do something else I was supposed to do, and I realized it at the last second.
So if you're listening and you have no idea what Bob's talking about,
I don't either.
I'm kind of in the same boat. So we'll row in that boat together. Although I actually do know a little bit about what Bob's. We got to find a way for you to make that easier for you to do all the things that you're supposed to do.
If only. All right, now I'm done it. So I'm totally focused.
Excellent, because we're a minute 18 into the show. So it's great.
And I notice it has an effect.
Absolutely. Lots of people jumping on to watch. So that's great.
There you go. All right.
So welcome, everyone, to today's Antidote, our daily broad and podcast.
Tell us where it is, Tom, just so we know, because I'm in the mood for some,
Oh, so whether you are watching it on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter,
Spotify.
Now you can listen and watch. All those people who've been on Spotify for a long time minds are blown.
Yeah.
Like, well, wait a minute. I just listened to it when I'm in my car, but now I can watch it. Well, how do I do? And if I'm use it when I'm going to sleep or running, or now do I have to watch it? I'm like, what am I doing?
I know.
Talk about customer confusion. Interesting concept.
But you forgot the big one.
Well, yes, there's other podcasts that you can listen to.
No.
Oh, yes. You could be watching it on LinkedIn Live.
LinkedIn Live.
I did that last night for my daughter because she was just asking about where we do this show. And I was like, yeah, and we do it on LinkedIn. And I actually did like LinkedIn Live. She's like, what the heck is that? I'm like, well, it's a little inside humor of what we do. So if you are on Spotify and you have been listening, you should watch just to see what that is. So take a moment. If you're in your car, pull over, watch it for 30 seconds, and then you can get right back on with your day. And
I haven't had that experience yet. I've got to try that.
Oh, to watch it on Spotify?
Watch it on Spotify. I've watched it on YouTube. I've watched it on Facebook Live. I've watched it on Twitter. And I've listened to it on various podcast platforms.
I think here's what I think is really interesting about that. As much confusion as I think there is also some clarity. As if you are if you listen to podcasts, how often have you sat there and said, wow, I wonder what that person really looks like? Right. Does their voice match what I'm expecting them to look like? And so all you'd have to do is watch like a few minutes of the episode and you'd be like, oh, that's Joe Smith. I know who Joe Smith is when I hear that's Bob Graham. And when he does LinkedIn Live, I will know exactly.
But maybe we should for those who can't get to see video, we should probably describe ourselves. So I'm going to describe you and then I'll describe myself. Excellent. Tom's sort of a mix between Brad Pitt and Sean Connery.
You are?
Nice. You are.
Oh, I am.
I feel like I'm more like a Ryan Gosling or any of those studly guys in the Hallmark movies. And I've been trying to grow out my stubble all around my chin, which I do. It's funny. I start watching Hallmark movies and I go from a goatee to the stubble just because all those guys have stubble.
I got it. We just went down to one viewer currently, so I'm not sure what that says about anything. Maybe it was when you started wanting to describe ourselves. Anyhow, thanks so much for being a part of our show today. We are going to have a discussion around a topic like we do every day. This week's topic is valuing others' hour. And today we're going to talk a little bit about trust. We'll get into that in a little bit. And at the end of the show, we're going to offer our one thing. Bob and I will each offer our one thing. And we hope that as you're listening, you add comments or watching. And if you would like to share your one thing, you can do it inside of the comments. We would love to see that because we know others will value it. If you're listening to the podcast later today, go into the Ring of Renegades and post what your one thing is, because we know that there might be somebody desperately looking for that and be like, I couldn't really figure it out, but that's exactly what I was thinking about. Thanks so much for sharing. So,
or I'm not alone.
Or I'm not alone. Correct. They may not even
there's
respond.
someone else going through the same thing as me. That's what I find in that group a lot. For me, it's like, oh, I'm not the only person.
Yes.
Because I think we feel isolated.
Absolutely. And why?
Which is why we started this, coming up on 2 years ago. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. 20 months ago, approximately.
That's it.
Excellent. So why don't we dive into our celebrations, what we do at the start of every show. We'll sort of at the start of every show. Bob, what are you celebrating today?
I am celebrating the things that I don't know I do that people recognize. I was at a holiday party for one of my clients last night, and they had the owner of the company said something really powerful about me to the whole employees and a whole bunch of their friends. And it was really special to be recognized in that way for contributions that I know I make, but sometimes you think you just do things and no one notices. So I'm celebrating that, not me, but the fact that someone sees my value and articulates it. And I like those words of affirmation. So
yes, we do know that is Bob's favorite not love language.
Yeah, love language.
Love language. Yes.
Even my wife said that to me this morning. I was telling her about it, and she's like, "Ooh, you love those words of affirmation."
Well, it's good that we all know that. So then we can we know.
I don't know if it's good that we all know it, but we know it.
Well, that's all right. That's great. Excellent.
So what are you celebrating?
So I'm going to try to do this and see if I don't mess it up. I'm going to show you what I'm celebrating. Let's see if this works.
Ooh. It's not going to be good for the podcast people. We're going to have to describe.
It's not going to be good, but we'll see if I can do this. I can do it. So this is Google Play.
Oh!
And if you look to the second row,
yes.
far right, you will see the Renegade Success Network app that you can now download onto your phone if you have an Android phone. So my celebration is that after a few months of hard work by Bob and I, we have launched our first app. So it will be available shortly on Apple. Apple's a little bit slower. The Apple Store, the iTunes Store is a little slow, and it will be there before we know it. So that is my celebration for the day, is that it is actually available for download.
You didn't even tell me that in advance.
I only discovered it this morning. I knew it was supposed to be within 24 hours, and I was like, well, I don't have an Android phone. How can I find it? And I was like, well, you dummy. Just go to Google and go to Google Play on your computer, and you can see if there's an app. So I went there as I was waiting to get started, and I was like, now I'm going to change my celebration, and this is what my celebration is today. So that is what I'm celebrating.
Nice. That's huge.
So I would imagine that the nation is celebrating that as well. Although I'm sure you didn't pick that out. It's
hard to come up with something secondary, but I do have something, Tom. It's National Chocolate Covered Anything Day. Grasshoppers, ants, pretzels, marshmallows, almonds, cashews, gummy bears, licorice. You want to cover it with chocolate? Today's your day to make it happen.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if Hershey's
dark chocolate covered marshmallows. Oh,
dark chocolate covered marshmallows.
Yes. There's a place that makes chocolate, their own homemade chocolate, Walkenfuss, right near where I live.
Yep.
And they have a little post office. And when I have to mail books, the reward for going and standing in the line to mail books is usually a couple of the chocolate covered marshmallows.
You mean this book?
Yes, that is the book. Or wait.
See it. Oh, I got one in front of me.
Sometimes I get crazy and send out this book.
Look at you, 2 books. Nice little
bookending this.
I like that. Chocolate covered anything. It's fun. It's interesting because that's probably appropriate. My daughter and wife for the last 2 or 3 days have been doing chocolate candy.
Ooh.
So she has on our kitchen table or our dining room table bags of stuff, pretzels.
Well, that's funny because she told me that she had a present for me for Christmas, and she wanted to know when I was in town. Ooh, if it's chocolate covered stuff, I'm excited.
It's well, I don't know. I know part of the gift, and it's not that.
Okay.
And it might be an addition. So I hope I didn't ruin that surprise.
No,
Sorry,
it's
Liz,
fine. It's fine. This is the time of year when people will cover, strawberries with chocolate. For many people, that's a delicacy. It's also a big Valentine's thing. So I think I love when these food things correlate to the time of year. We had Cocoa Day, and now we have anything chocolate day. Apparently, the chocolate lobby is really working hard. The Renegade lobby has got to get as aggressive.
I know. We probably have to pay them more. Maybe that's the challenge. All right. Now that we have done our celebrations, and if you'd like to celebrate, please feel free to put in the comments what you're celebrating.
Or what your favorite chocolate-covered thing is.
Or what your favorite chocolate-covered thing is.
Always like a good hint.
Yes. Something new to try. So with that, let's move on to our topic. We're talking about the valuing others, not about. We're talking, the conversation for this today is, actually, sorry, for this week is valuing others' power.
You got there.
That's a hard, who came up with that? That's not easy to say. And earlier in the week, we talked about valuing that in meetings, in emails. Yesterday, we talked about it in requests. And today, we're going to talk about it as it relates to trust, which I think comes into all of those. And I think it has its own set of challenges that the people don't always leverage. So do you want to kick us off with that, Bob?
You know what, Tom? I think you should, because I know this was one that you said you had a lot to think through, and you had thought about this morning. So I always get to go first. You go first today.
Okay.
I have ideas. I'm not trying to hedge.
Well, it's interesting because I said I had a lot going through my head because I was trying to figure out how to differentiate that from the other two, and I wasn't exactly clear.
I'll go then.
Thank you for offering, and let's stick with
do it.
So let's stick with tradition. People like to do things with tradition.
Okay. One of the things I think the pandemic really brought to light was employer-employee trust. And vendor trust. If you have a company that does stuff for you, the level of trust to believe that someone was doing things when you couldn't see them doing them really was something for a lot of employers. There was a concern a year and a half, 2 years ago when this all started, like, my employees can't work at home. I don't trust my vendor to be working on this project because if you can't see them, you can't verify. And I think one real good benefit of the pandemic is companies have figured out that people can work remotely, and they've figured out more and more how to go about it to establish that trust. I know I led a company, 10, 15 years ago, and we couldn't afford our offices. So we closed the offices. Everyone worked at home. And the first month and a half, I was really frantic. What if no one does their job? What if these things don't get accomplished? But after about 2 weeks, I realized not only were they accomplishing what they needed to do, they were doing it in less time, but with more finesse. And so I started to trust, if I was clear with what the outcome should be, how they got there didn't matter. If they wanted to work at 4 a.m, that's fine. If you had a 9 o'clock meeting, you had to be at the 9 o'clock meeting. But other than that, I looked for the output because I trusted them to be professionals. And I think that's one of the things that I notice with employers is difficult at times, is to believe that your employees are motivated to do something and that they'll actually do it. And you don't have to micromanage it and be like, Tom, did you do that thing? Hey, that Google Play, you talked about that 3 months ago. I haven't said a word to you. I haven't used the words Google Play in the last 3 months. Yet I knew you were doing things because you would say, hey, made some progress today, spent the day on this. That's all it took. And you and I have a good trust between each other that we will do the things we need to do. We've established that over the years. And also we've established that we have a shared goal.
Sure.
Google Play is part of our vision. Apple is part of our vision. Doing these podcasts and broadcasts is part of our vision. And I think when you have that shared vision, then you can have trust. Where I think it becomes difficult is when you don't trust your employees, because that's the first sign that they're going to go elsewhere.
Well, I also think
trusting them is emailing them every hour.
Right.
Hey, what are you working on? Calling them every hour. What are you working on? Going behind them and going, hey, you've done this 80 times, but this is the 81st time. They've all been great. I want to see it right now. Go ahead. You had some thoughts.
No, I was just going to say, I think that it's exactly what you were starting to get into, is the feeling that you have to be in sight to ensure that they are doing what they're doing. And what's interesting, and it's interesting, I think it was Mark Cuban, whose big concept was nobody has an office. Everybody sits in a big bullpen, especially if you're on a sales team. It's like there should be nothing to hide. We're all here as a team. We're going to celebrate. We're going to celebrate
one together, right?
Yeah, when somebody has success, we'll hear it and we'll all be able to be a part of it. And when somebody's struggling, we can figure out as a team how to make it go. And I think he was, not that he was the first to do it, because I think people have been doing it for a long, long time. I think he was the first to talk about its value and what it means. And I think that, I don't know that means he didn't have trust in them. Although I think he had probably seen where once you get someone off in their own space, they can do whatever they want to do. You know, how many times do you hear of somebody walking through and found somebody playing chess or Scrabble, or Christmas, this time of the year, Christmas shopping, during the Final Four, watching basketball, all those things that sometimes people do. And I think that so often that was seen as not being productive. And yet I think as we have talked, there are ways to be productive, and that may be productive because you've taken your mind away. And I think that rather than being, one of the new ways to look at things is, rather than being confined into a space where we all have to act the same, it's like, okay, we're just goldfish, throw us in a pool together and we're all exactly the same. There's the opportunity to say that people work differently, and that scenario may not be as effective for some as for others. And so how do we allow them the space to do that differently? And I think that's what we started to discover as people have worked from home was, rather than spending a few minutes to surf online for something, or look at Facebook to see what's going on, just to clear your head, people are starting laundry, doing the dishes, talking with their kids for a little bit, things that actually add value to their day, rather than stuck in an office where they can't do that. And so they do whatever they can. They text somebody on their phone, they, scroll through TikTok for a little bit, or whatever their method of clearing their head so that they can go back and refocus. And I think that to me is truly, when you're able to allow that to happen, is when you are truly valuing people's hour, because you stop looking at the time they are spending on something and you start focusing on the output. Are they getting the job done? Which ultimately is really what matters. It doesn't necessarily matter how many hours they are working at it, unless it's taking them way longer than we imagine it should.
Right.
And all that's going to mean is they're not getting to the other things that they have to do. So it's going to show up in outcomes at one point or another, even if they do one thing unbelievably amazingly, but that's one of 8 things that is part of their role, and the other 7 aren't getting done. And I think that if we are finding someone who is able to get their things done, why do we care how they spend their day, unless they are a forward-facing employee who is dealing with people all the time?
You have to have a presence in front of the customer. But if you're not customer facing, you're right. What's it matter? And I think I will bet you that's one of the legacies of the pandemic. Because I was out the other day talking to a woman, and she said her employer just said, you can work at home permanently. And they had asked her what she wanted. She's like, well, if we have to go back to the office, I'll go back to the office. And they said, well, we were actually thinking you do a great job. You don't deal with the customer. It's really easier for you. You seem to like it. You get a lot done. She was like, great. So that's a perk for her in her job, and also a way to recognize that she can be successful without someone looking over her shoulder. I see Pamela has a comment. Can you put that up, Tom?
Yeah.
Human beings can sit at their workspace for 8 hours straight. We are physically incapable of doing that. We need to rest our eyes, our bodies, our mind throughout the day. Yeah, couldn't agree more.
And yet, for whatever reason, and I think maybe the difference is that so often now many roles are not the old roles of standing up and adding this widget to this, whatever it is we're producing.
Right.
And
the industrial era where
correct.
We were all working at assembly lines and processing stuff. Exactly.
And even then, people couldn't really do it for 8 hours, which is, I think, what led to coffee breaks and smoke breaks and all those other things, so that people could try to function normally. Yet I think
that's still the model we cling to in most workplaces.
Absolutely. And I think for some that works great. For some people, the idea of sitting at home is not what they want. They want they want the ability, because maybe there's no one at home to have those conversations with. They want the ability to be in an office setting where if they have a question, they can walk down the hallway, have a conversation with someone, and enjoy that interaction, and yet still not feel like they are being watched, unlike
right.
the people at home. And so I think what that's going to take is for people who do go back to the office, and leaders who are supervising, managing, working with teams that are in the office, is how do you provide them with the same sort of freedoms with their hour that you are doing with people who are at home. I think that's one of the biggest challenges of the hybrid model is, you've got people who aren't in the office. And so some leaders will stress and say, we need checkups once a day, right, twice a day, whatever it is. Maybe I'd be able to shoot them an email or a text or an inter-office message just to make sure they're at their desk.
Right.
Which not only isn't valuing others' time, is that really an effective use of your time as a leader?
No.
To be worrying about what's going on. I mean, yes, you need to be aware. And I would imagine there are other things you could be getting done in that time.
And I think for the entrepreneurs out there, or the business owners who are solopreneurs working by themselves, there's still a certain element of this that has to go into play. I find that when I trust the people I'm working with on a project, the outcomes are better. Like, I literally have no idea, Tom, how many hours it took you to get the Google Play thing set up. I know you told me there were some complications and you had to do a little. I don't know if you did it at midnight every Tuesday or at noon every Wednesday. I don't care. The outcome was that, and you achieved the outcome. Now, if you worked 100 hours on it, and I don't know that, it's probably not helpful, because we need to know that going forward. If we did another app, it's like, oh, wow, Tom, that was 100 hours in 2 months. We need to plan for that going forward. Or you say, well, it was 100 hours because it was the first time. Next time we know so much more. It might take 60 hours.
Sure.
But even then, trusting the person. And I think there's also a trust element in terms of when we're buying things and selling things. We have a trust with the customer. We've talked repeatedly about know, like, and trust. Valuing someone's hour is also, if you're giving them a sales presentation or you're, scheduling something with them, using that time wisely.
Sure.
Yeah. We have a weekly meeting. It's an hour-long meeting, and I don't have enough to say, but I'm going to pad for 26 minutes because, sorry, we have an hour versus, hey, good news for you. I've got about 20 minutes of stuff. Really like to get through that. And then after that, if you don't have anything, I'd love to give you and me 40 minutes back of your hour so you can do other things I know you have to do. That to me is that trust factor that I trust. When you and I meet, yeah, we chit chat a bit, but we also like, hey, if there's a lockdown deadline, I need to be done by 3:00. We honor that.
Sure.
Because we trust each other, not like, oh, I'm sorry, Bob, I've got 45 minutes more stuff. Tom, we talked about 3:00's 3:00.
Yes. And it was interesting when you started talking about sales. I think it's the same thing. You know, it's interesting whether you're cold calling or, you know, the one I really think about is car dealerships. The old model, you used to walk onto a lot and immediately, boom, someone would be on top of you. And they would want to talk your ear off about all, you know, and all you wanted to do was walk around the lot and look.
Right.
Or, you know, then you got into, okay, well, come into my office and we'll have a conversation. And then I'm going to take this to my sales manager and we're going to see if I can get a better deal for you. And are you really valuing those people's time? Because a lot of people are like, I just want to buy a car. You know, it's interesting. I think there are there's some businesses that have popped up that have made that transaction super simple, where they, you know, unless you want help, wander around the lot, do whatever you want to do. You know, I might come out and just check in and say, do you have any questions? But then I'll go back. And then the buying process is a lot quicker. And they, you know, and I think they've gotten rid of all these dated sales techniques of, well, I'm going to walk into the boss and fight for you because if I fight for you and reduce the price, it only hurts my commission. Like that, really, there's something going on there. And so I think to really value their time is like, all right, how do we accomplish what you came in here to accomplish? And make sure that you have all the information you need, not to quickly run through it, and to just value.
Well, and also valuing them in that the information's available now.
Sure.
I can know exactly how much a car costs. I know how much. Last time I bought a car, it's like the dealer makes 2 to 3%. I knew what that MSRP on that car was. It's like, here's what I want to pay. This and 2 to 3%. This is the number. And the guy's like, how'd you do that? That's exactly the number we're looking for. I'm like, because it's out there and it's available. And I had mapped out things. And so that trusting customers with that information as well, which is valuing their hour, because then I can come in and say, I want this car because I've already done all the figuring. I know what options I want. This is the price I'm willing to pay, and it's the price I'm able to pay versus can we squeeze another $20 a month out of you? Oh, you really want this? And think of the example of Carvana, right? Now, Carvana, you can buy a car online and they bring it to you.
Right. You don't have to deal with a person. Right.
Doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's
because
unique...
they want to compress that and they trust their customer to know what they want.
Sure. Well, and I think there are some buyers who that's perfect for, and others who are like, I want to go to my dealership because I'm probably going to bring my car back to be, have repairs done on it.
Or I don't know what options I want. I'm not really sure what, 4-wheel drive versus 2-wheel drive does for me. And I don't know what having a sunroof versus not having a sunroof does for my gas mileage. And there are questions that you could have.
Sure. And I don't want to spend my time surfing the internet to try to figure it out. I'm going to go to somebody who, and I think it's a fascinating look at how people engage and why they engage. Some people are like, I'm going to do all my own homework. Others are like, I'm not spending my time that way. I'm going to go in and talk to somebody who I believe, or at least I can determine whether or not they are someone that I want to purchase from and have all the information. They can share it with me so that I can then make my decision and make sure that I'm not missing something.
And valuing others' time's also valuing your customer's time. One of my clients sent an email the other night about a meeting to a large group of people, like 25 people, even though only 3 or 4 needed the information, because they had the ability to send it to the bigger group was already preset. To carve out the smaller group was going to take time.
They clearly didn't listen to Tuesday's show.
Well, I said, but think about the fact that you just wasted time for those other 20 people. How do you think they feel about your company now because you wasted their time with something? And what's their reaction going to be the next time you send them an email? Hey,
they're going to think it doesn't matter.
Exactly. So we build that trust, and we can break that trust down if we're not thinking about what the effect is for those other people. That's ultimately how I value your hour, Thomas. I think about what your hour means to you, not to me.
Right.
Sure. I know when you say I've got plans to go do a workout and you have a set time, you tell me that time. I know that's really important to you. So I work around that. And that's trust and valuing your hour, because you're also, hey, Bob, oh, wow, Bob, you can only do this at this hour. Let me move a couple things around.
Sure.
Because I'm not going to cry wolf and be like, Tom, I want it to be at 3:45 just because I like to have control.
You do like to have control.
But now I'm Mr. Content, so I'm
excellent. Mr. Content. Maybe you should change your name to Mr. Content, Renegade Ringleader. All right, Bob. So I think we've had a great discussion around this. We'd love to hear your thoughts about it. Thank you, Pamela, for sharing your thoughts. What's your one thing, Bob?
I think it's think about the other person and what you can do to continue to build that trust or to retain that trust when it comes to using their time, whatever that looks like, whether it's scheduling a meeting, whether it's sending them an email, whether it's calling and saying, I have 3 things to discuss and then discussing 5, whatever that looks like, really being honest and respectful, as if their time is more valuable than yours, because guess what? It is.
Okay. Interesting. I like that. I'm going to go with, I'm going to go back to, I think, one of my favorite parts and one of the things I've really discovered through all of this is we're all unique. And so people are going to, because we're unique, we're going to work differently. And so for some people, they can sit and do 3 hours of work, take a little break, go back, and they want to be in the office. They want to be around other people. They want that interaction. And for others, it's like, I'm going to focus for an hour, and then I'm going to take a break, and then I'm going to focus for another hour, and then I'm going to take another break. And then you know what? I'm going to have a long lunch. And when I come back from that, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get things done. And it's interesting. That was kind of, I sort of love the fact about a lot of the roles that I had was that, and one of my favorites was when I was at Binghamton working in athletics. I mean, we were working crazy hours all the time, so no one really cared. And we, especially in the summer, Fridays were usually a long lunch. Not every Friday, but occasionally we'd be like, and if we sat there, half the time we're talking about like, how do we creatively look differently at the way we do things?
Right.
We might be there for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and then we go back and no one cared because I was getting everything done that I needed to get done. And I was more productive and happier than if I was just stuck sitting at my desk being like, okay, I can't get up because I only have 20 minutes for lunch. And so I think that if we can always continue to think that everyone is unique and worry about the actions that they take so that the output is what we are looking for, does how they do it truly matter? All right.
Yeah. I think we're on to something. I think it's a great topic, and I look forward to tomorrow, our discoveries of the week.
I do as well. So if you have one thing you would like to share, please feel free to put it in the comments. If not, you can share it inside our Ring of Renegades Facebook group. If you're not yet a member, it's easy to join. Just go to Facebook, search for Ring of Renegades, and then just ask to join. It is a private group, so we're just asking you to, we'll ask you to tell us, why you're a renegade. And then you can become a part of that group. And if you have an Android phone, or you'd really like to download an app onto your iPad, I guess, or any other device, you can download it. Just go to Google Play and load the Renegade.
I don't think you can download a Google Play product onto an Apple device. Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right. Sorry.
That's okay.
It's the first day. I'm trying to, I'm excited, trying to get it all in there and add something.
Soon enough, we'll have that Apple one, and then it'll just be whatever your device. We got an option for you.
Correct. So you can go there. You can access our podcast, this podcast, from Google Play, so you can get it on your phone while you're running around. And there's some other things in there as well. So we look forward to seeing you inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, or we'll see you tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, for our next edition of Today's Antidote. Have a great day, everyone.
Hey, embrace the renegading you and cover something in chocolate. Anything. Grasshoppers.
Why did you stop both times with grasshoppers?
It's a running
joke. You ever done that?
With my nieces and nephews, I'm always joking that they're like, I'm hungry. I'm like, oh, I got chocolate-covered grasshoppers.
Have you ever had one of those?
No.
Okay. Just check.
No.
I mean, maybe it's a delicacy somewhere else.
Could very well be.
All right. Have a great day, everyone. We will see you soon. Thanks for listening to Today's Antidote, powered by the Renegade Success Network. The Renegade Success Network helps you confidently create your own unique pathway to success. To learn more about the Renegade Success Network and how you can take your next step, follow us on Twitter, connect on LinkedIn, or join the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. For full details on how you can join our community, go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Embrace the renegade in you.